With the market looking like it's found strength, we're wondering, are the next leaders showing themselves? What are the next leaders, and do they all fit within a common thematic that we can get behind and put trades on? We've got a list here of the top 30 momentum companies. They are the best performers, and no doubt they've outperformed the rest of the market as it's fallen away. We've also got a list of the top 30 launchpad companies. That's where they show up before they become momentum leaders. And that's where we'll be paying attention to find the next leading theme if it is showing its hand. Looks like uranium's starting to put its hand up. The one who's been through both lists is Gary Glover. He gets the list on a Thursday afternoon, the same time that members do, and then they can put through requests. Anything that Gary hasn't covered, we'll put those charts up from the list as well to discuss them. We want to be finding out where are the trading opportunities, what can we learn from the markets, and what's Gary pulling out of the market as an insight. So a lot to lead to, Gary. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, Chris. I'm good. Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously you've got, we're seeing gold is obviously still very robust and throughout the list. So still seeing gold names there. I thought maybe 3,000 might have been a bit of a limit for gold, but we've gone to 3,050, and so I know not too much sign of any weakness there. So as per the leaders in the past, they tend to push on higher than most people expect here. So the gold names continue to sort of keep moving on there. Probably the one that, I think we talked about posting some the trades you missed or the opportunities missed there, which I did post last week, and I did encourage anyone to post some following there, which obviously didn't happen. But so I just did the work on my own. But I thought SPR, this was a nice undercut of the low here. This is probably the missed trade there. So I know a few clients who traded this one actually, which is good for them. But see how we undercut that last low there. So sort of going sideways, showing relative strength there, staying in the top half. Just a little small undercut there. A little 1, 2, 3 there. Basically, I think Caruso's got the 3 EMA. So if you wait for the wait to break the sort of 3 days there, you would have bought this break here. So something like a 133, 134 or something, there might have been a nice little trigger there. So that was probably a missed opportunity. The volume wasn't particularly outstanding there, but stock had been pretty strong, had been a leader. It's been had a pretty nice move since then. So bit choppy here. Might have got, depending on whether you use how you stack your moving average and stuff there. I would have traded some out into some heat there. Might have got stock that on the balance there, depending on how tight stock was there. But it has had a pretty good move there. So that's probably
24th on the list this week, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's probably the big opportunity missed there. Number 3 on the list is probably to go back and look at more interesting there. We did talk about DrainShield there the last week or two, saying it was looking interesting there. I just wasn't sort of sure it was going to shoot the lights out there, just because it's sort of got a lot of overhead, and sometimes it's pretty rare to be the leader of one bull phase is going to be the leader of the next. It doesn't really happen very often. It's very maybe only 10 or 15% of those leaders go back to back. You get your first wave, and then you can get consolidation, and you go again. But then once you've had that, been running for a while and ramp up and then go into what they call a blow-off phase, you rarely see stocks go back and go match those highs and stuff there. They can go up there, but they'll But this is definitely one that's interesting, and sort of definitely seen some pretty good volumes on the way up there. So a nice little pennant, little flag there. Sort of hold the, I think it sort of hold the, just went below the 10 there, but did hold the 20 here, and then did come out of this and then run up again. Did sort of sat on, kind of sat on here, and it's gone here. So it's definitely one to watch there. Anyone who sort of follows, some of the macro stuff going on around the world. I mean, it's got all these nations there, all
increasing their defense budgets,
coming together, increasing their budgets. Putin isn't going to go to a ceasefire here while Europe's putting together a force. So this is something to keep an eye on here, because that that could definitely fuel that. And that maybe this could be the 10 or 15% chance there if that does heat up here. So definitely want to watch there. Just want to sort of see this have a consolidation there. That might take months to play out to that whole European thing as well. So just interesting to keep an eye on that as well.
2 points on that chart while you've got it there. At about the 105 level, that's the 200-day moving average. So it did stall there a little bit, but now it's over it, so that can be positive. Fair few studies have shown that once you get over that, momentum trades can have more sort of tailwind, less headwind.
Yeah.
And this is something that Gary won't do. But if you look back at the videos around July, we're going to have one about Drone Shield, and Gary called it quite accurately. And he said, look, I really think this can get hit pretty hard. And it was quite a bold call to make at the time because it was the market darling and it was absolutely shooting the lights out. But 9 months later or whatever it is, that has unfolded. So if anyone wants to have a look at that video, that's really quite something to understand what can happen to market leaders when they get torn apart. So
yeah, if you follow McLaren's work about sort of a 3 ascending trend lines and then going to those blow-off moves, I mean, I'm just replicating someone else's work in the past. I think so. But then, when you get those really aggressive blow-off moves there, they always come back to where the last drive started. So I just think, I think I've seen this, probably said a dozen times there, Chris, that I don't think I've found one that hasn't. So, and if anyone can find one that hasn't, then please send it to me. But a bullet request over the last decade or so, haven't ever sent me one. So I've never found one. So yeah, so we just got to follow what history sort of tells us there. But definitely Drone Shields, definitely want to keep an eye on here. Be nice to sort of go through some sort of consolidation there because it's had a few waves in there now. Sort of had like a little, little 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sort of 7, 8, 9. So maybe you can do 11 or 13 drives there. But then you're pushing it. Then you want to go through consolidation there. So be nice to see this go through some sort of consolidation there. And then, not that we want to sort of see conflict,
we just want to see this over
from wherever it is,
back.
Yeah, but it is definitely one to keep an eye on there because that sort of, we're seeing quite a few of the defense stocks all fire up as well. So we saw, EOS has been building here. The ASD's had a couple of bids there for the shipbuilder. So, there's lots happening in that sector there. So, we saw Germany pass a bill there to spend their defense thing. So it's just, got to keep an eye on those stocks there. So they should be on the radar there because that's definitely a sector to come back in. But we've had a jump here, one of consolidation, that's all. SYR was number 7. Bit of a VCP in there, Chris, there. Sort of, I know you were sort of talking about this, hit the launch pad there sort of early there, but did go through when it hadn't really taken out a swing high here until early this day here. And that was on sort of big volume there. So that's probably the first little trigger that would have had me interested in here. I still, because this one's got so much overhead, it's one of those stocks there. It's just, if you look, if you dial out here, the overhead is a lot, so there's lots of losers there. So anytime it rallies considerable amount, it's going to be met with some sellers there, just people who are looking to, try and nullify their losses in the past there. So that's the hard part of those names there. The first are the stronger names that are higher up in the, in the top half. LRV, this one was interesting there because it's sort of, we did see, there was a few VCPs in here, few B-wave breaks as well. Nice sort of consolidation here and then come out. This correction here ended up being a little larger than the previous one. So that's probably a bit of a negative to me. And even breaking the 50 would have been a bit negative as well, Chris. But there wasn't, the one thing that you sort of saw in there wasn't really any heavy down days in there, really. So has gone back up once it did recover there. Did give another little B-wave break here. So again, this is the sort of thing you got to stay with the leaders there because if they do give you those breaks again, you can follow there. So, you could have waited for a break of 78 here. And it's obviously gone again here. So this is the thing about these leaders. They can keep driving there. So, but that was that one there. Probably just had a bit bigger. When I saw that larger correction there, sort of like that probably made it a little bit less,
On that LRV, actually, as you mentioned it, I've looked it up, the history of it. It hit the launch pad 27th of December and then 3 more days in the first week of January. So the first 3 trading sessions. It hasn't been in the launch pad since, but it's been in the top momentum. Oh, I can't count it, probably 15 times. It's just consistently been back in there.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I
late
mean,
January.
that's probably your best trigger right there, breaking that level. Yeah. So that's sort of, it's shown that strength, it's consolidated, and then it breaks through 42 cents there, breaks through that level there. That's probably your best trigger. And that gave you a really quick trade, accelerated out there. So did go through another consolidation. I do like to sort of see these A, B, Cs, and then get this, if you get this little lower high on the way down here and you get consolidation under that, then that's a good setup as well. That's probably the next best setup coming out of that after a consolidation. I think you got to see that something time consuming, something in 3-wave form there, and then breaking the B wave there. And that's a bit of what they call in Elliott wave terms there. These ABCs, that they can be sort of downward aggressive, or they can be flat. Now, the flat corrections are the ones that are better. You basically sort of just get a slightly lower high and a slightly lower low. So this is almost like an undercut as well, because it didn't spend too much time at a new low either. It's really only spent a few days down there. So that's why those sort of those flat corrections, 3-wave corrections, are probably better than those really aggressive sort of sell-offs there. So, but yeah, that's the sort of thing we can probably take from those trades there. And then obviously this bit of a cup and handle here, that's a sort of slightly higher one. But did come down here and consolidate and then break again. That's good signal there. Got a reasonable move there, but maybe not the same size as the other ones. But yeah, still interesting. PNR number 9 was interesting there. This is too small for me, Chris, but the one thing which does stand out here is the volume profile. We've seen that sort of first drive here in February. Some big volumes there. Pull back there. And that consolidation there. What's my mouse going out? Screen here. But see, the volume profile was pretty good there. And then pull back here. See how the volume's pretty light through here as well. And then it started to build again as we're coming out again. And then we've had some big volume days as well. So the volume profile looks pretty good here. Not the trend's obviously nice and robust there. So just too small for me, but nothing wrong with that chart there. So,
Well, Launchpad was hit the 27th of January and then again on the 3rd of Feb. So in that little compression, and then once it started climbing back up.
Yeah, so that was a big level too. We look at that, just, breaking above. It would have been a seller there, 10.5, just selling. And then once he's gone, then the stock can go. So, yeah. NXN. Bit of a cup and handle on this one, Chris. But a bit hard to trade here. Bit not the most liquid, bit small here. I just thought that was interesting. There wasn't much selling going on here as well. So, what you're looking for, these sort of stocks to sort of have these, some reasonable volume there, and then it sort of pull back. I pull back on light volume as well, but too small for me. Just thought it was interesting. NMR did have a bit of a VCP back in here. The whole thing tightened up again. A pretty small stock here. Did eventually break out here, but too small for me. But we've got another VCP setting up again. So the one thing I've noticed, there was definitely saw a bit of selling from the top here, but then volumes have really dropped off here. So starting to see an uptick in volume here. So this potentially might come out of here again, but too small for me personally. But another VCP setup. GRS. Another VCP as well. It's had that big run, pull back. Again, you maybe got a session or two here, but then the whole thing just dries up here. Has a bit of a bounce, pulls back, volume lightens up again, goes back up into here, and the whole thing tightens up here. So now we've sort of got this first, second, third little drive there. So this would be a little trigger here going through that 5.9, has gone through there. Again, too small for me personally, but on a bigger stock there. It might be one I might be interested there. CRS, WAF. Look, I just think this is a good one just to keep revisiting here because, this is a sector which was so strong there.
Looks a lot like a chart that you posted last week, Gary.
Cup and handle. Yeah, it's gone here. It just kept going further. So it's amazing. Even though it's had a big move there coming out of this handle there. So what, $1.80. I thought, 220 there, it's sort of gone 40 cents from $1.80 there. So that's a pretty decent move there. It's at 35%, but it hasn't, it's had a couple of down days and then moved high here. And even now it's still sort of consolidating, still sitting on top of that previous high. So it's still in a reasonably strong position here. So
how do you interpret that inflated volume that it's had since the early first week of March? It seems a lot higher than the January, February period. So do you interpret that higher volume as positive, negative, or what?
Well, the breakout day on good volume is a very good sign. So that's when, you can sort of, that's when if you sort of break out there in strong volume as well, and that's exactly what you want to see. So you want to see that tight consolidation, low volume, and then come out. If you buy this little B wave break here, and end of the day you see that big volume, and like, I think this really can go. That's where you might, me personally, if I sort of scaled up to say 10 or 15%, and then I saw it close, really strongly, big volume, and I think I should have. That's in my head. I'm thinking, I think I should have my maximum on here. I might just get the last parcel on the close to make sure I'm full, because that's the perfect setup, really. So it's got on with it there, nice and tight here. So I mean, it hasn't even broken a 10 yet, Chris, as well. So, this would be what, 230 here on 180's 50-cent break here. So it's a fair move there. So yeah. But yeah, just that's a good setup there, just to sort of revisit and just remind yourself there of what you're looking for. This WA, I did actually sort of see this one here, but it was too small for me. A bit messy in here. Obviously, we did sort of pull back, shallower, tighten up here. So a little B wave in here, but just too small. Don't think it was in the top half either. I think in the weekly, it sort of came back a bit deeper there. Did see this in the weekly setup, but just not the best sort of signal there. And then in the bottom half, so I just don't feel it as being, even though it's had a nice pop there, I think it's just too small there. And we talked about Spartan. That's been pretty decent as well. So that's the quality of momentum there. So there's a few golds still in the list there. They've had a pretty strong run. They're pretty up there. So, if you're long some of those golds and then well done, you probably still got to stay them until they break below your moving averages there. I mean, me personally, I might trade some of them into heat, and then I just try and run a moving average there. So whether that's the 10 or the 20, depending on how strong it is. And then once it sort of cuts that, then I'm usually out there. You just got to be careful with golds, because sort of like some of them can come up with sort of news and something, rolled off. There's been a few actually roll off there, but there's been a few that have rolled up as well. So you don't know what you're going to get here. So that's why you got to have your methodology there. So the pros take some in the heat and they let the moving average, and then you just don't know how far these things can go. You don't know if it's going to be a 10% move and then roll over, or it's going to be a 30, 40% move and roll over. So just have a mechanism there to catch some, get yourself to break even there, and then just trail the rest and let the market do the rest for you.
Well, that's a fair few on the momentum list. I think there was just 2 left over on the request side. There's a fair few requests on the uranium, which I'm sure we'll cover in the launchpad.
Yeah.
But ORD, so 4th place.
ORD, yeah, a little small for me, but yeah, I mean, it had that impulsive move, and the whole thing tightened up here. This looked like a really good setup here, but it didn't go on with it. Now it's come back in the range again. So the setup again had another pop and then, pull back here. So a bit messy. Did have a nice impulsive break here. Then have a nice little that little flag there. That's a good little setup there. Because now you're sort of clear here. and then this little 3 days on its side here. That's the sort of
Is that the gift that you were talking about, or is that like getting confused with something else?
that's the David Ryan. He loves to sort of see that. He loves to see it just under the high. Those little 3 days consolidating by that, but sometimes they can be just. That's the one thing I've noticed now is that sometimes these cup and handles can be just under or just over. But yeah, I think in the past I've been probably trying to be too rigid with my rules and stuff there. But if you see that strength there and then the consolidation, and then that's when you can come out there. So, but the whole thing's tightened up again. Broken the B wave here just recently, so it still looks okay here. Getting a little loose now. That's the only thing. So kind of where these sort of small ones there, you're sort of like kind of where do you put your stop in there as well. So you got to sort of trail. You got to have a mechanism there to sort of take some in the heat here and then trail some. So still looks okay there, but probably just getting a bit erratic there.
But just while you've got that, I know that you monitor lists of the IPOs, and as the chart starts in July last year, clearly that's the IPO side of things. Is this something that comes up on your list, or you monitor it to see how the market is behaving with these new companies, but still needs to meet liquidity requirements? Or how does this fit into that analysis that you do with IPOs?
Yeah, there can be. I mean, if you follow some of those sort of IPO traders, particularly in the States, I know, I think, trying to think of Eve's surname there, but she trades IPOs for IBD, and she's done a couple of good videos there. She's actually written a book. I think it might be Lifestyle Trade or something like that. Covers IPOs, but they're quite erratic, So another one there, which another IPO, which I did sort of see here, which is, I suppose, they're not really an IPO, which is just a change of business, but still, I view it sort of same here. That's the whole thing consolidated there. Then it did actually break out here. So there was a little breakout. I didn't sort of see, I mean, look at that breakout like there. It was good volume. Then the whole thing tightened up again, all those 3 days there. It's like, ooh. So, there's probably, you can trade these there. I think, the IPOs, I found the IPOs could just be a little bit, they can be aggressive. So you definitely want to be trading some into some sort of heat there, some sort of pop there. But yeah, but we see, I mean, you don't know how far this can go here. One that comes to mind there is that TEA. That was, that was an IPO there as well. So had one little breakout there, kicked on and consolidated again, had another breakout, had a bit of a consolidation, and then it ran. So yeah, you just don't know what these IPOs can do, but definitely want to be keeping an eye on those. So, yeah, they're a little harder to trade, the IPOs. I would actually suggest trading smaller. So I'm not saying don't trade IPOs, just maybe take smaller positions there, because you're sort of seeing that erratic nature there. You sort of can chop you in, chop you out. I think even having listened to Eve and stuff, and a few videos she's done there, she talks about the, getting chopped around a bit as well. Some of the moves, quite, so having smaller positions in, maybe slightly wider as well. So,
Well, that's definitely one area of the research that I know you've looked at over the last couple of years. And I get the impression that any spare time you have, you are researching. And I think it was last week you said, you know what, this week I'm just going to focus on my Minervinni research. So how's that played out for you?
Yeah, and I've had a Minervinni week just so I've just read his books and I've just listened. I literally went through Spotify and I've saved every Minervinni podcast interview. Yeah, so even some summaries of his books, which are sort of less interesting. But no, probably the one thing actually that that Minervinni was talking about, they're probably more around that momentum masters and the psychology there, which I thought was pretty interesting. Was that he was saying that obviously he doesn't sort of doesn't beat himself up. Like if you make a mistake there, like a lot of traders will sort of berate themselves, and go a bit hard when they make a mistake. So if you might say, "Oh, why did I do that trade? Well, I'm such an idiot," and so you're using a lot of negative language and stuff there. Where the whole idea is, obviously, most sort of trading books, they talk about being calm there, so not being, not getting too excited on your wins and don't get too discouraged on your losses there. Try and maintain a even keel there. But Minervinni is slightly different there. He's sort of saying, you've got to get used to taking those losses there and just, don't get negative on the losses. Just try to learn from them. And then actually he's saying when you have a good win, actually you should have a little bit of a celebration. So he's a little bit, so, you've got to, do you think being a confident trader is probably the right mindset, because if you're berating yourself there, then you become scared, afraid. But if you're, patting yourself on the back when you do something good, you're getting more confident, and then, you're willing to trade what you should be trading. So he's a little bit more positive on the positive side there. So actually sort of suggesting we should celebrate our wins a little bit more. So it's funny, I've always sort of read that if your worst trade usually will follow your best trade. So because you get overconfident. So that's the only downside there to celebrating too hard. So celebrate a little bit, I think, but yeah, interesting that he's suggesting there that we should be celebrating our wins. It's probably something I don't do enough of, maybe. Yeah.
I think you celebrate your wins by going to do more research.
Yeah, I just sort of noticed in the past there, sort of that if you have a really good patch there, you sort of you start probably getting a bit less onerous on your rules and process there. You maybe start to bend a little bit. So, but yeah, that's the only thing that you don't want to get into.
So you've got AGE up on the chart there. That's number one on the launch pad.
Yeah.
Before we dissect that chart, I think it's going to fit quite in with this company. What are the leading themes that you noted on the launch pad this week?
Yeah, well, I noticed 1, 2, 3, 4. I noticed at least 4 uranium companies in there. And I had a couple in there. I actually had 2 others that I thought should have been on the list, but obviously they must have been just outside. But yeah, so we had 4. Yeah, and there's probably 1 or 2 in there which has probably there might even be a third, might even be a 5th one in there, might be something there with some exposure there. Yes, I know, like some of the golds, like I know WAA is gold and copper. So sometimes these sort of metal companies there, they might have exposure to different areas as well.
There was one I was researching this week, which is gold. Oh, plus in this other state over here, we also have a uranium tenement that we're looking at. So it does happen. And then sometimes if they're looking to sell that asset, they can actually trade not on their primary commodity, but they can actually start trading on their secondary commodity if they're touting that tenement. But that's getting a bit detailed. So on those charts, but if you like, you can run through those charts, and at the end, then I'll just give a summary of. Actually, I'll do it now because it will probably make more sense. Definitely there's uranium in there. But this is something that Gary and I were talking about before recording, and I'll save him trying to remember because I've got the numbers in front of me. You noted that there were a lot of mining companies in the list. And if anyone's seen it, the members have seen the list, I'll note that.
I think you told me that 25% of the list is gold companies. So that tells you how robust the gold sector is. Yeah.
It's over 25%. Yeah, definitely. At least 25. We've got to look at the crossover for some of them. But at least a third of all companies are mining companies. More than a third, actually. So that's in the momentum leaders. The top themes, like you said before, zinc, silver, copper's in there. Then there's gold explorers, gold producers. And then there's also copper and nickel. So I was having a look at nickel last night or the night before and found some interesting charts in there. For the launch pad that we're about to look at, most definitely uranium. That's ranked number 1. So as Gary was saying, he found a few others that he thought would have been in there. In the top 200, there are 12 uranium companies. There are 13 lithium companies. There are 22 battery-related companies, which are heavily lithium companies as well. 21 American miners. So if you follow the tariffs, that'll make sense. And then there's also large cap miners, which are sort of don't really show up too much for us, but there are 20 of those in the top 200, which is pretty big number for sort of the larger caps, particularly I'm looking at percentage differences. So they're the overarching ones. We'll head it back to Gary, knowing that uranium and lithium are showing up a fair bit, as well as American miners. So enough of the theme.
Yes.
Let's get
Yeah, so one thing there, so it's AGE. It's obviously had a pop on a little bit of volume there. I'm guessing MEI was the one that I wasn't sure about. I'm guessing by the name that does have some uranium exposure, but again, it's a little small, meteoric. I know Aurora is there's there,
gold in America, I thought.
so that does have uranium as well. So it has a small one there. It's had a little bit of pop there. EL8 is another small one there, that uranium as well. That's had a little bit of pop. So nothing sort of outstanding in those three. They've had a bit of a pop there, some okay volume in there. But if you look through, I think BOE, that one there's had a pretty decent move there and some pretty solid volume as well. So you've had that exhaustion into the low, and you've come out here really impulsive. That's a pretty good setup there. So the thing I like about too, Chris, is this little 1, 2, 3 thrust low. That's how like a lot of big lows come in. And that sort of overlapping nature there, because that's sort of more of a sideways sort of trend, and a margin on your low and then bang. So that's the really interesting sign. It's had a pretty decent move here. Now we know, just look at the last couple of lows here for BOE, popped up, have a little sideways consolidation, pop up here, a bit of a consolidation as well here. So this is a good sign, a good volume here. So I do like the look of that there. So that's had a pretty nice move there. I think NXG was the other one that's just come off a pretty deep low. I think Bannerman